What up, B Squad? It is your boy JB, and we are here today, you guys, with another review for this is the Golden Bachelorette season 1, episode number 2, you guys. And these episodes don't have titles, you guys. Now, before we go ahead and get into it, you guys, if you guys are watching this video or any other video on the channel and you guys aren't subscribed yet, then I need you guys to do me a solid favor and stop taking out on this date and having me pay for it at the end of it. You guys know the routine. You can do me that favor by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, turning on your post notifications, you guys, and also by sharing the video. And with that out of the way, you guys, without further ado, let us go ahead and get into this episode of The Golden Bachelorette, shall we? Now, before we do get into the episode, you guys, I do want to let you guys know that I am currently still on the work clock. So if you guys hear a lot of clicking, that is because I am still, again, working and doing things on my work computer before I end my day. But this episode, let me know what you guys thought about it. If you watched the episode, down in the comment section, or if you're in the live chat, leave them in the live. So let's go ahead and discuss this episode of The Golden Bachelorette. So we see as the men are, starting to explore the mansion, right? And the thing that I will say again, like I said last season, it is interesting to me that they have these older men sleeping in these bunk beds and stuff like that. It's like, even at my age, I wouldn't want to sleep in a bunk bed. And I can get around as easy as I can, but to sleep in a bunk bed, absolutely not. And then I noticed with Jack that Jack is there for a good time, not a long time. Am I upset about it? No. I'm actually here. I'm cool with Jack. I like Jack. And the closet that they had, Pascal's, when he saw that closet, he had a little bit of issue with the size of the closet. And I found it funny that he had an issue with the size of the closet. It was hilarious. He has one of the guys that's going to do his laundry for him, and then that's really it. So the next day we see as Jesse came in and told the men about the group dates, right? So in this week's episode, there are going to be a total of 3 dates, right? There's one solo date, and then there are two group dates, right? So at each date that they have, there's going to be a rose up for grabs at the end of the date, right? And so the person who's going to go on the one-on-one date, if Joan gives them a rose at the end of that date, then they're safe. Now, if they don't get a rose from Joan at the end of the date, then unfortunately they will have to immediately leave the process, right? So then the date card came in, and so the guys that are going on the group date, it consists of Gary, Bob, Jonathan, Charles L, Mark, Jordan, Guy, and Keith, right? So this date was for them. They all went out on it was a prom date, right? And with the prom date, you know what it is, prom. So they got dressed up, they went to the prom, and when they got there, Taylor Dane was performing. I was like, okay, come on, Taylor Dane, I'm here for it, right? I love to see it. So Taylor Dane performed. Then we see each of the men sitting down with Joan, right? So I'm gonna talk about the most memorable of the date of the sit downs. The first memorable one that I noticed was Jonathan. So Jonathan sat down with Joan, and Jonathan was talking about his prom experience. How when he went to the prom, he went to a Catholic school, right? And he asked the girl to the prom. The girl said yes, but I think he said like a week before the prom or the day before the prom, one of the two. The girl ended up canceling on him. I'm like, dang, that's janky. So he ended up not going to his prom, right? So we found out a little bit more about some of the guys. She was telling us how Bob has a lesbian daughter, which I kind of figured that when they showed the clip and when they showed the families last week, and we saw Bob's daughter. I was like, I'm pretty positive his because she had you don't want to assume, but I kind of figured that his daughter was part of the LGBT community. So also with that, we found out that Jordan, he had went out on a date previously with Taylor Dane. He said he asked Taylor, she remembered him. She said yes. We also found out from Gary that he is Tina Turner's godson. And then after that, it kind of went a little sad for me because the camera kept panning in on Charles L. And the thing with this is, a lot of these people have had been married before and now their spouses are, no longer here, right? So your heart goes out to them. But with Charles L, I just kept looking at that camera panning in on Charles, and I was like, Charles looks a little sad. He looks a little depressed, right? And I was also wondering if Charles is still grieving the loss of his wife, which I'm pretty sure he is, but it just looked like he's fresh in it. So we see as he was talking to Joan, right? And I know he said that at one point his daughters told him that he just needed to get out and live, right? Which I agree with that. Just because your significant other is no longer here, it doesn't you can still love on them, you can still love them, right? But you have to be able to move forward for yourself. And so he was talking about the fact that they went on a work trip, right? And how she had a brain aneurysm. I was like, oh, that is so sad. And I really, really felt bad for him. Now back at the mansion, the guy's got the other date card, right? So this is a solo date. So Joan chose to go on a solo date with Chalk, right? And she told him Chalk to meet her at the happiest place in the world. I was like, well, that's obviously Disneyland, right? So then we moved back over to the prom. So at the prom, Joan was to announce who would be the prom king, and the prom king would then get a rose, right? So she decided to give the rose to Jonathan. After Jonathan telling her the story about him not being his prom story about asking a girl to the prom, and then the girl basically just ditching him at the last minute. So Joan, like I said, Jonathan is the prom king, right? So then the next date we see is the one-on-one date with Joan and Chalk. So they went down on their date to at Disney World, as I said, right? So on their date, they found out they have a lot of things in common. And the reason that Joan decided to do this one-on-one date with Chalk is because she knows that he's a serious person, but she ultimately wanted to find out from him if he has a serious side. And I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Also, you guys, I really do want you guys to tell me so far, like, how are you feeling about the Golden Bachelorette? Like I say, I like it. Was I expecting Joan to be the Golden Bachelorette? Not 100%, but I'm happy that we have Joan, right? So with their date, he talked about his previous relationships, right? So he was with his first wife for 12 years, but he said that they realized that they weren't really a fit for each other. And I was like, wow, after 12 years. And I wonder if it was a situation of where they decided to stay together for the kids, but then it got to a point where they realized that they just really weren't a match for each other. Like, I really do wonder how that came about. Them being married for 12 years, not being a match, and then divorcing, right? So then he talked about after that divorce, he was single for some time, but then he met Kathy. They were together for 9 years, got engaged, and then he was talking about how Kathy got sick. And when I tell you, like, it's the I think that's the thing that I like more about this than probably the original version of the Bachelor, because those are young kids who are fresh in trying to find relationships and things of that nature. Whereas these are people who have already been had kids, been married, and just looking for someone to spend the rest of their days with. So I like this version as opposed to probably the other version, right? So, as I said before, with the solo date, if the person that Joan chose to go on a solo date with did not get a rose at the end of it, they would immediately go home, right? So, once that was done, At the end of the day, she decided to give the rose to she gave her rose to Chalk. So Chalk is safe. So as I said before, if he didn't get the rose, then he would have to end up going home. But he's safe to stay another day, right? So then next up is this, the second group date, right? So the second group date consisted of the other men who didn't get to go. And so this is going to be the second annual talent show, right? Golden Talent Show. So they had guest judge Lonnie Love was there. And so the winner of this date, like I said earlier, would get to go on a solo date right after this. And another rose is up for grabs, right? So all the men went. I think everybody did an amazing job with the solo, with the Golden Talent Show. I really do think a lot of them did really well, right? But the one that stood out the most, and I think it was just because of his pure nervousness, was Dan. I think Dan was actually the last one to go. I think Dan was the last one to go, and like I said, he had a lot of nervous energy with him with this date, with this performance, right? But he got up there, and Joan ended up actually picking him as the winner of the talent show. And so, and I think she picked him more specifically because of his nervousness, right? So we see them as they went out on their date, right? And on the date, she gave him a rose. And like I said earlier, it's everyone is talking about, the loves of their lives, right? And it's it's a part of life, you get it's a part of life, right? We're all going to eventually pass away, so we can't avoid it. I think he was talking about at one point something about 6 months to live. I was like, wow, ugh, my God. So after that, we get back to the mansion. So they did like a little outdoor thing. When I think about Jack, I crack up laughing at Jack because I think, like I said, Jack was just really there to have a good time. He was there for a good time, not a long time, because Jack sat down, had a conversation with Joan. After that conversation was up with Joan, he went and did a cannonball in the pool. I hollered because it was hilarious to me that man went and did a cannonball in the pool. We did see that Joan gave Gary a picture of them from the prom, and he was super emotional about the picture that she gave him. What else? Also, she sat down with um with Kim, right? And with Kim, he was talking about how his wife passed away and how she wrote a letter for their granddaughter, who at the time was only 17 months old. So I think he said his granddaughter, when she turned 8, that he gave her a letter that the grandmother wrote to him. Whew. Like I said, you guys, the emotions when it comes to this show, I love the show, but my emotions can only take so much when it comes to this. But overall, I like the show. What I will say about the Golden Bachelorette is, and I don't remember this with the Golden Bachelor last season. Was it 2 hours long? Like, I do not remember that show was 2 hours long, because that is the thing that is getting me, is that it's a 2 hour episode. And because I really want to do the show because the show comes on Wednesday nights, and I do be wanting to get do the live on Thursday. But when I went to go watch it yesterday, I was like, wait a minute, 2 hours? Like, I was like, I don't know if I can actually sit through 2 hours, because I had other things to do. But yeah, that's the only thing that I have a little grievance with, right? Is the 2 hours. It's the 2 hour episode. Other than that, it's fine. But like I said, I do not remember last season being 2 hours. If it was, you guys can definitely be like, JB, yeah, it was 2 hours last season. But again, I just don't remember being 2 hours last season. I really, truly don't. So we get to the rose ceremony, you guys. And like I said in last week's episode, we're still trying to learn these men. So I don't necessarily know who all is who. But I think I know who all went home in this week's episode, and I can safely say who went home in this week's episode. I think I can. So I know one of the first guys that I noticed that went home was Jack. I wasn't shocked that Jack went home at all. I knew it was eventually coming because I was like, I think, like I said, Jack is here for a good time, not a long time. I also noticed that the black man, his name is Chris, right? I noticed that Chris was sent home. Also, Bob was sent home. I was kind of shocked that Bob was sent home because I thought that Bob and Joan had a connection with each other, but I guess I was wrong. And then I think the other guy that ended up going home was Michael. If I'm incorrect, you guys can definitely correct me down in the comment section below. But ultimately, yeah, that was it. That was really it, you guys, with this week's episode of the Golden Bachelorette. Like I said, I am enjoying the season, really truly am. 2 hours episodes, it's a lot, but we gonna rock and roll with it, and we gonna stick with it. But as always, you guys, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications, share the video, and until the next time, you guys, please stay safe, take care of yourselves, wash your hands, be blessed, and I'll see you guys for something else. Bye, guys.